Look at a world map and the oceans appear endless. Broad blue spaces connecting continents, carrying ships, and linking economies. But that view is misleading. Hidden within those vast waters are narrow passages only a few kilometers wide that determine how energy flows, how goods move, and how nations project power. When even one of these corridors is disrupted, the shockwaves travel across the entire global economy. From the Red Sea crisis to tensions in the Taiwan Strait, from competition around the Strait of Hormuz to the rising significance of Arctic passages, choke points have become the pressure valves of global trade. They are the geographic bottlenecks that hold the world together. And if one of them closes, the world feels it immediately. Understanding choke points means understanding the hidden architecture of global power. The past decade has shown that choke points are no longer stable assumptions. They are active arenas of geopolitical competition. Attacks in the Red Sea have forced vessels to reroute thousands of kilometers around Africa, increasing travel times, fuel costs, and insurance premiums. A small conflict in a narrow channel suddenly reshaped global logistics. Rising military activity around Taiwan has made one of Asia's busiest maritime corridors more uncertain, prompting shipping companies to model risks that were once unthinkable. Pressure on the Strait of Hormuz continues to influence global oil markets, with nearly 1/5 of global supplies passing through a space so narrow it can be disrupted with minimal force. Meanwhile, melting Arctic ice is opening shorter but unpredictable routes, drawing major powers toward the far north. Climate change is shrinking some choke points and creating new ones. Over 80% of global goods move by sea, and a huge portion of that volume depends on a handful of narrow corridors: Malacca, Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, Panama, Suez, the Bosporus, and the Taiwan Strait. The world depends on fragile places, and those places are increasingly contested. Choke points have shaped global power for centuries, but their importance surged over the last 150 years. The Ottoman Empire once controlled the Bosporus and Dardanelles, influencing access between Europe and Asia. European powers fought for these straits for generations. The arrival of the Canal Age, with Suez in 1869 and Panama in 1914, rewired global shipping and made choke points even more essential. Once a shortcut becomes indispensable, it becomes a vulnerability. As oil trade expanded in the 20th century, Hormuz and Malacca became arteries of global energy. Narrow passages could now determine the economic stability of entire regions. The Cold War introduced naval competition, with the United States and the Soviet Union positioning fleets near critical choke points. Sea control became a proxy for influence. The rise of containerization further amplified these dynamics, binding global supply chains to predictable transit routes. Today's supply chains rely on yesterday's geography, and geography doesn't move. A wide range of actors depend on choke points. Major maritime nations, China, Japan, South Korea, Germany, India, the United States, rely heavily on stable sea routes. They invest in naval patrols, diplomatic agreements, port infrastructure, and maritime treaties, because disruptions directly affect their economies. For trading nations, choke points are not foreign concerns, they are domestic economic risks. Regional powers near choke points see geography as leverage. Egypt influences Suez, Iran affects Hormuz, Turkey shapes access to the Bosporus, Singapore sits at the mouth of Malacca. These states use choke points to negotiate advantages, but pushing too far invites backlash from global powers. Meanwhile, the United States, China, and European states maintain naval presences to secure supply chains and prevent rivals from dominating maritime corridors. A superpower's influence is only as strong as its ability to keep sea lanes open. Energy exporters and importers both depend on choke points for different reasons. Exporters need access to markets, while importers rely on stable energy supplies. When choke points are threatened, markets react instantly. Shipping companies and insurers, though less visible, drive major decisions. If risk rises, insurers increase premiums. When premiums rise, companies reroute. When companies reroute, global prices shift. Logistics decisions can shape geopolitics just as much as naval deployments. Small coastal states like Djibouti, Panama, and Singapore benefit from strategic location but must navigate intense foreign interest with careful diplomacy. What is truly at stake is global stability. A huge share of global oil and liquefied natural gas passes through Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, and Malacca. A single disruption can shake markets in hours. Modern supply chains rely on predictability, and a blockage in Suez or Panama delays products worldwide: electronics, food, automotive parts, pharmaceuticals. Even brief interruptions ripple across industries. Militarily, choke points host bases, surveillance systems, and rapid response forces, extending the strategic reach of states that can secure them. Economically, when multiple industries depend on one narrow corridor, any disruption becomes catastrophic. A choke point is where geography becomes economic truth. Looking ahead, several futures are possible. Major powers may strengthen naval cooperation and intelligence sharing, reducing risk through sustained diplomacy. This approach is expensive, but instability is far more costly. Another scenario sees diversification of routes. Pipelines, rail corridors, Arctic passages, and longer detours reduce dependence but increase costs. We could enter a period of localized instability and recurring tensions in places like the Taiwan Strait, the Red Sea, or the Eastern Mediterranean. Not full conflict, but enough uncertainty to shape global shipping. Technological adaptation might ease some pressure through improved tracking, alternative fuels, automated shipping, and new port hubs, though technology cannot erase geography. Climate change may transform global trade routes as Arctic passages gradually open, bringing both opportunities and challenges. Strategic choke points reveal an uncomfortable truth. Global trade depends on fragile corridors. A channel only a few kilometers wide can influence the price of oil, the stability of supply chains, and the decisions of governments thousands of kilometers away. When geography narrows, strategy sharpens. From Malacca to Hormuz, from Suez to the Arctic, choke points shape the structure of the global economy and the balance of global power. As long as nations depend on maritime trade, and as long as narrow passages guide that trade, choke points will remain central to the 21st century. Technology may evolve, but the map still reminds us that sometimes the smallest spaces carry the greatest weight. Thank you for watching the Atlas Report. If you enjoyed this analysis, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our next documentary. Your support helps us continue exploring global power, strategic geography, and the forces shaping world events. We appreciate your time. See you in the next report.